I found out in the most shocking way that my mother-in-law had been tampering with my birth control, resulting in me getting pregnant again just after having our first child. Honestly, I'm still reeling, not really sure what to do from here. Let me just say up front, if you happen to know who I am, please keep it to yourself. I created this throwaway account to vent, to cry, and to get some support without anyone finding out. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, and though I want to be happy about the pregnancy, it's hard when it feels like it wasn't really my choice. I'm reaching out because I need help, support, and understanding. So, here's how it all started. My husband and I, still so young, he's 22, I'm 20, welcomed our baby girl into the world just 18 weeks ago. She's absolutely beautiful, the sweetest baby you could ever hope for. And, if I'm being honest, she's been relatively easy, at least compared to what I expected from a newborn. There's just one issue. She wasn't a boy. My in-laws have been obsessed with the idea of us having a son. They went so far as to outright deny she was a girl until the very moment she was born. Why? Because the family bloodline, according to them, must follow the father. If we didn't have a son, the family name would just die out, because when a girl marries, she carries on her husband's bloodline, not the father's. So, to them, girls didn't really count. The day they came to visit us in the hospital, my mother-in-law made a comment about when we'd be trying for another baby. We laughed it off, not thinking much of it. But she got more insistent. She straight up told us, "You all need to try for a boy soon, within the next month or two." After that, the topic of us having another baby kept creeping into conversation. It became one of those things where I would just smile and ignore it, because we had already made it clear to them that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. But still, the comments kept coming. Around that time, my mother-in-law started coming over to our house daily. She would watch the baby for me so I could sleep or clean. I thought it was a generous gesture at first, but as time went on, I realized it was a lot more than that. She'd stay for anywhere between 1 to 4 hours, unsupervised, and I began to feel uneasy. But I couldn't pinpoint why. Then, just 2 days ago, things took a sudden, unexpected turn. My husband poured me a mixed drink, and as soon as I brought it to my lips, I felt a wave of panic rush over me. Something just wasn't right. I immediately put the cup down and insisted we take a pregnancy test. Sure enough, it came back positive. The next morning, we took a digital test, and once again, positive. Based on my last menstrual period, I should have been about 6 weeks along. We were shocked, confused, but somehow, also, a little excited. You see, we hadn't been using hormonal birth control since I couldn't get it due to insurance issues. We'd been using condoms and extra care to avoid any mishaps, making sure everything was in place. So how had we ended up here? Pregnant. We decided to keep the news to ourselves at first, didn't want to deal with another baby frenzy from his family. But I'm incredibly close with my sister-in-law, so I told her, after making her promise to keep it a secret. When I told her, her eyes went wide and she started to cry. She asked me, with disbelief, if I was serious. If I was sure. I assured her that, yes, we were sure, and that despite our age, my husband and I were more than capable of supporting another baby. That's when she broke down. Through her tears, she revealed the unthinkable. My mother-in-law had been poking holes in our condoms for months. Ever since we came home from the hospital. She claimed my mother-in-law told her outright, but at the time, my sister-in-law thought she was just upset about us not having a son. Suddenly, everything clicked. That's why the condoms never worked, despite our precautions. That's why, whenever my mother-in-law was around, I'd be shooed off to sleep while she cleaned. That's why she'd come over to watch the baby without anyone else around. She knew I wasn't on birth control. I had told her, after my OB went on maternity leave, that I couldn't find another doctor who took my insurance. I was furious. Furious beyond words. I felt like I could go straight to her house, storm in, and just explode. But what's worse, I'm irrationally angry at my sister-in-law, too. How could she think this was some kind of joke? My mother-in-law was so specific about everything she was going to do. Why didn't she warn me? If I'd known, I would have hidden the condoms somewhere safe. I feel trapped. This pregnancy, while a blessing, wasn't my decision. It wasn't an accident. It was manipulation, plain and simple. My mother-in-law didn't get the grandson she wanted, so she took matters into her own hands. Now, I don't even know how to handle this. I'm so angry, I could scorch the earth. But I also don't want his family finding out I'm pregnant, especially since I'm not even 12 weeks along yet, meaning the risk of miscarriage is still uncomfortably high. There's a strange bright side, though. My husband's finally seeing his mother for what she really is. He's shaken, probably in disbelief at the lengths she went to, and I can't help but feel relieved. For once, he's out of her fog. He's on my side. But it's hard. So hard to hold on to any joy about the pregnancy, knowing how it all came about. I'm trying. I really am. In the room, she has no right to be. If you let her walk away with this, if you let her get away with what she's done, it's not just the act itself that's wrong, it's what it will lead to. She'll feel entitled, proud, even smug, bragging for the rest of her life about how she's the reason you have a second child. She'll claim this as her victory, her achievement. The twisted pride in this sick manipulation will fuel her for years. And don't be fooled, she could do it again. She may even think it's justified, that it's some kind of power she holds over you, something she can repeat, sell, exploit. But this is not a person you can ever trust again. Your firstborn will forever hear about how she wasn't good enough, because of her gender, and how it was because of this manipulation that you now have your second child. Isn't that just wonderful? A twisted legacy she'll try to leave for your family. Your daughter will need protection from the idea that she is anything less than worthy, from the belief that this sort of coercion is somehow acceptable. She needs to know that no, this is not okay. Your family needs to understand this, too. If I were you, I'd take it a step further. Talk to the local police, seek legal advice. In a scenario where a couple agrees to use birth control, like condoms, and one partner deliberately sabotages that agreement, it's not just betrayal, it's a violation. It's fraud, it's assault. If your mother-in-law has tampered with this agreement, that's what it is. So inspect every condom in your home. If you find any damage, keep them as evidence. This is not a situation where you can afford to be lenient. And let me be clear, never, under any circumstances, should she be allowed around your children again. This level of manipulation, to this degree, is something no one should have influence over your kids. She is capable of extreme lengths to get what she wants. This is not the kind of person you want shaping your children's future. What should you do? Well, it's time to take drastic action. Call the police. Publicly, let everyone know about this woman's twisted behavior. You could even take it as far as making sure everyone in her community knows, this is the person who tampered with birth control. This is the person who violated trust in the most disturbing way. You have to take a stand because this could escalate, she could target your family even more. What's next? Planting drugs to have you deemed an unfit parent? It might sound extreme, but make no mistake, she sees you as an obstacle, something to be controlled and manipulated. If you don't act, if you let her continue in any form, you're giving her permission to dictate the future. Is that what you want? A person who views you not as a human being but as something less, something to be controlled? Do you want her power-hungry grip on your family to tighten? Because that's what's at stake. You have to decide now, is this the kind of person you want near your children? Because she won't stop unless you make her. And if you don't act decisively, you may regret it forever. At some point, you'll have to find a balance, both for your children and for yourself. You need to make your voice heard, your boundaries clear. You cannot let fear or manipulation dictate how your family lives. It's not just about protecting your own mental well-being, it's about safeguarding your children from a future filled with harm and broken trust. Will and Evie, two people whose past had always lingered in the shadows, were entangled in a complicated web of history and unresolved feelings. Charlie, Evie's husband, had always been the anchor between them, and yet, as Will and I planned our wedding, an unexpected rift emerged. Will, my fiancé, had made it clear that he didn't want Evie anywhere near our special day, and I couldn't quite understand why. I had always known Evie as a supportive friend, a constant presence, someone I trusted completely. We'd run together 3 times a week, and she was the kind of person who would drop by with baked goods, a thoughtful gesture, always so full of warmth and kindness. She had a heart that saw no boundaries, no competition. I saw her as nothing but a friend. But Will, he saw something else. I could feel his discomfort even as he described the situation. He spoke of how Evie would often be around our house, how she'd make his favorite dessert, or how she'd go out of her way to show an interest in his hobbies. His words felt like a cage around her actions. Wasn't she just being a kind friend? Wasn't that just what good friends did? To me, there was nothing more, nothing that crossed any line, but to Will, every gesture seemed like an invasion. His insistence that she harbored feelings for him made no sense. The doubts gnawed at me, and with them, the discomfort grew. I had to know the truth. In the heat of the moment, I confronted Evie. I needed her to be honest with me. Had there ever been anything more? Anything that lingered, anything hidden beneath the surface? At first, she laughed. She found the idea absurd, a ridiculous thought. But then the truth began to spill, and I listened, horrified, as she confessed that Will had, at one point, made her feel uneasy. She described how he'd once sent her drunk messages about how they were more suited for each other than she was with Charlie. The realization hit hard. I was not the only one affected by Will's confusing behavior. But it didn't stop there. Evie, after the messages, distanced herself from him, but once I came into the picture, things seemed to settle. Or so I thought. I learned that just this past weekend, after Will had been out drinking with Charlie and friends, he had sent Evie another message. This time, his words crossed a line that no one should ever have to face. He told her that he wished he were the father of her child, not Charlie. He claimed he would be a better father than Charlie ever could be. I stood frozen, staring at the screen as I read the message. How could he? How could Will, the man I loved, betray not only me but also our friendship with Evie, all for a fleeting, misguided feeling? Confusion and fury swirled inside me. How could Will still harbor feelings for Evie after everything? How could he send such a message when I had trusted him completely? The lines between love, trust, and betrayal had blurred beyond recognition. How could I ever move forward knowing that the person who was supposed to be my partner had been so careless with my heart, with my future? I knew I had to confront him, and when Will returned, I had made up my mind. I had to speak up, confront him about the texts, the lies, everything. When he walked in, I saw it in his eyes, the recognition, the tension in his shoulders as he sighed and asked, "Is this about Evie and the wedding?" I nodded. It was time to lay it all out, to expose the truth, to see where we stood, and to decide if this was a relationship worth saving. The tension was palpable in the room as Charlie showed the group pictures from his recent family holiday. But one offhand comment shattered the illusion of harmony. A careless remark about Evie being out of Charlie's league echoed in the air, slicing through the warmth. It hit Will harder than anyone could have anticipated, reminding him of a painful reality. He'd lost his chance with Evie long ago. A sense of betrayal stirred deep within him. He quickly sent her a message, his heart heavy with the weight of unresolved feelings. I couldn't understand the full depth of what he was feeling until I asked the simple question, how would you feel if it had been Charlie harassing your partner? Will's head lowered, eyes avoiding mine as he muttered, I'd be upset, but Charlie doesn't deserve Evie. His words hung in the air, thick with resentment, yet also revealing the undercurrent of jealousy. I told him firmly that Evie wasn't an object to be passed around like a prize, something to be won by whoever was deemed worthy. She chose Charlie, Will, I said, my voice cutting through his justification. That's what matters. That should be enough for you. But Will's feelings were tangled in something deeper. Charlie has everything, he confessed, his voice bitter. He's got everything I wanted, success, freedom. Even Evie. The words spilled out, each one like a dagger aimed at his brother's happiness. He couldn't shake the bitter taste of being overshadowed by Charlie in every aspect: school, sports, success. "It's not fair," he muttered, clenching his fists. I tried to make him see, asking, "If Evie was single, if she was interested in you, would you leave me?" The question hovered, heavy with implications. Will's silence was all the answer I needed. It was enough to confirm my worst fears. That's when I decided it was time to leave. I couldn't stay under a roof with someone who didn't care for me. "I'll be staying elsewhere for a couple of days," I said, my voice steady. "I need time to figure out where to go next." "We're done." As I gathered my things, Will made one final plea. "Can I have the ring back?" "It's a family heirloom," he asked, his voice soft but insistent. It had belonged to his grandmother and was meant for whoever married first. But when Charlie had asked for it, Will had thrown a tantrum, insisting it should go to him as the eldest. Their mother had sided with him, denying Charlie the right to keep it. "No," I told him firmly, turning the heirloom over in my hands. "It's going to the person it was meant for, Evie." Now, here I am, at Charlie and Evie's place, taking a few days to figure out my next move. It's strange, this feeling of being in limbo. I work for myself, which makes things easier, but the weight of it all presses down on me. I've decided to stay away from Will for now. His actions have made it clear that the relationship is beyond repair. Charlie and Evie have chosen to go low contact with Will. They'd go no contact if it weren't for the inevitable family drama that would follow. Neither of them wants that, especially Evie, who's been put through so much by Will over the years. When Will called Charlie, asking if I was with them, Charlie lied, telling him he had no idea where I was. But the conversation quickly turned. "We're going low contact with you, Will," Charlie said, his tone resolute. "You've hurt Evie for too long. I'm doing what I should have done years ago, protecting her." Evie, ever the empath, had apologized, convinced that she was the reason my relationship with Will had ended. But I reassured her she was not at fault. Will was the one who had pushed us to this point. If anything, she was just as much a victim in this twisted scenario. I offered Evie the ring, though she insisted I return it to Will. She didn't want it, feeling it would only cause more trouble. Looking back, I wish I'd seen Will's behavior for what it was sooner. But I was blinded by love. There were red flags, obvious ones, that I chose to ignore. I don't blame Evie. I know some might see it differently, but I can't help but feel I was just a placeholder. Will has always had his sights set on her, and I was simply there as a distraction, a safety net until he could get what he really wanted. The advice from strangers echoed in my mind. "Your fiancé is obsessed with another woman. Don't you see it?" they warned. One even said bluntly, "You're his backup plan. If Evie was ever single, he would leave you in a heartbeat." They were right. It stung to admit, but I had been living a lie. Will would never truly choose me, not over Evie. The realization hit hard. Some said I had two choices. I could stay and endure a lifetime of resentment, or I could walk away now, before I got too deep. The hardest decision would be to put myself first, to choose a future where I wasn't second to someone else's unrequited love. But would I be able to walk away? Could I really leave him? The answer seemed so clear now, but the heart has its own way of distorting reality.